Okay, we're live on YouTube. Meeting is yours,
Good
Mr.
evening.
Chairman.
Wanted to go ahead and open up the, start the meeting for Planning Commissioner for March the 18th, 2021. Can I have a roll call vote, please?
Debbie DeHart,
Here, White Lake Township.
Steve Anderson,
Here, White Lake Township, Oakland County.
Mary Carlock,
Here, White Lake Township.
Peter Maher,
Here, Cape Coral, Florida.
Matt Slicker,
Here, I'm in Commerce.
Scott Ruggles,
Here, White Lake Township.
Rhonda Grubb, here, White Lake Township.
Okay. Can we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge
Allegiance
to the flag of the
United States of America
and to the
To the
republic
republic for which it
which it
stands,
stands,
one
one
nation
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, welcome commissioners, and for the public, if anybody's listening. I was looking at the agenda. Sean, is there anything that we need to add or make adjustments as far as for the agenda?
No, sir, it looks good.
Okay, if that is the case, can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, second. Okay, thank you. We can go ahead and have a roll call vote for approval of the agenda, please.
Debbie DeHart,
Yes.
Steve Anderson,
Yes.
Mary Carlock,
Yes.
Peter Maher,
Yes.
Matt Slicker,
yes.
Scott Ruggles,
Yes.
Rhonda Grubb, yes.
Okay, approval of the agenda. Commissioners, have you had a chance to review the minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, if there's no additions or corrections to the minutes, then can we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Okay, do we have support?
Support,
Okay, thank you. Roll call vote for approval of the minutes?
Debbie DeHart,
Yes.
Steve Anderson,
Yes.
Mary Carlock,
Yes.
Peter Maher,
Yes.
Matt Slicker,
Yes.
Scott Ruggles,
Yes.
Rhonda Grubb, yes.
Okay, thank you. The approval of the minutes. Okay, now is the time on the agenda for what we consider the call to the public. And in this session, as far as the agenda call for the public, that is an opportunity for anybody that is online or listening can be able to address any concerns that they might have with regard to the Township or Planning Commission that is not listed on the agenda. This is not the time to go ahead and make any comments about the things that the Planning Commissioners will be reviewing. So this is the time to be able to do that. I'll leave it open. Brian, is there anybody that's out there? Do we have any public?
We have one caller in the meeting, and if you'd like to make a comment, press *9 on your keypad. That will raise your hand, and then we will call on you. And for anyone else who would like to call in, *9 is the way to raise your hand.
Okay.
We'll give
We'll
it a
give-
few seconds.
Yeah, let's give it a little time just so in case a person is trying to find that way to access.
Okay, no hands raised.
Okay, well, if that be the case, if for some reason something comes up as we move down, please go ahead and do an indication and we'll determine if it's appropriate time to allow you to speak. Okay, so that's, we do not, the next thing on the agenda is a public hearing. We do not have a public hearing. So we'll move in no old business. And so that moves us to the activities that we need to have, which is the new business. And we have the two different things tonight, commissioners, that we'll be looking at as far as for new business. One will be a recommendation to the board, and the other will be a motion for approval. And the second item on the agenda for new business will be the motion to approve. Okay, so let's get to the first one that we're looking at as far as a possible recommendation. It is West Valley, and the location on that is located on the west side of Union Lake Road, across from Carpathian Drive and north of Cooley Lake Road. It's consisting of approximately 15 acres. It's identified as parcel 12-36-176-003. And it is currently zoned RM1, and it has an attached single family. So that is what's on the first part as far as the new business. So how do you Mr. O'Neill, do you want to go ahead and give some background before we get into the reports?
Sure. And I mean, I can hit on a couple of the key points on the planning review too, if you want, and just move it along. I know Mike's got a couple things that he needs to touch on, but this project has taken a while to get through the process. Was given an extension a while back, and you may recall that it's sort of a sister project with Lake Point, which is immediately across the street. This one is zoned RM1, while Lake Point across the street is zoned PD. Part of the reason for the delay is this, and Jason Emerine, who is the project engineer, can probably give you more specifics than you'd ever care to know about it, but it needed to be re-engineered so that this project could take stormwater from the Lake Point project across the street. It wasn't originally designed that way, and when the developer got control over both parcels, he was able to take advantage of the outlet that West Valley, which is this project, offered Lake Point, which is the one across the street, which allowed for a little bit more open space on the other side. I think it makes Lake Point a little bit better project, and it really doesn't change West Valley much at all. I think the drive that was originally intended to, let me go, I can show you this in a second. Well, let me just finish by saying that, we're at a point now with everything that's gone on between these two projects changing and everything else that's happened over the last year where, we're happy that this project is coming down the home stretch and is to the point where final approval appears to be necessary, or not necessary, but appropriate. A couple of things that I wanted to hit on that were in the planning review letter were just something that was marked regarding the Planning Commission allowing the use of existing vegetation in the place of new landscaping. If you find what is shown to be appropriate, then you should make mention that we will count some of the existing landscaping toward that requirement. But there's not an inventory, a specific or good inventory, so it's really hard to say. But there is a bit of mature vegetation around the perimeter. A couple of other items. There is some lighting detail that needs to be provided. And we'll need to get that before pre-con. And then finally, some elevation information needs to be provided for the pool building. And I think that, and there's some labeling that needs to happen on the sheets just to clarify. Other than that, there's some information called out regarding the monument sign, but with those couple of items being addressed or changed, the recommendation is that this be approved tonight. I don't know if anybody wants to see the plan. Let me zip through.
I would like to see the plan.
Yeah, my computer's trying to catch up with my scrolling, and unless Jason has it handy and wants to, hang on.
I have it handy if I can share my screen.
Yeah, if you want to
Sure,
share
if I'm up.
yours and the Planning Commission doesn't mind, you might be able to get to the page, at least a main page, pretty quickly.
Let me know if everyone can see this, please. This is the view I like the most. If you can see this screen, I like this one. This talks specifically about the existing trees along the outside edges of the property. We made a big effort to try to save as many of those trees along the edge of the property as I could. In terms of what the site plan looks like, I'll try to zoom in as best as I can. This kind of shows everything. So Sean, I'll let you take over from here.
Yeah, I wanted to point out a couple of other things. If you remember the neighbor who lives in this corner here, the engineers, and I'm mousing as if you can see what I'm talking about, but I mean in the bottom left corner, which would be the southwest corner. We met out on site with her back some time ago when Barry Stolberg owned this project, and he had made the promise to repave her driveway because there's a connection that is allowed to be made, and there is, you know, an easement there, but it was going to kind of disrupt her driveway. And the promise was made by Barry Stolberg and continued by Michael Finari to replace her driveway for her, so it wasn't kind of patchwork quilted. So I wanted to mention that because that's a benefit to her for kind of that, maybe that disruption that's next door. And also a fire hydrant will poke through, and Jason, I don't know if you want to mouse around, that's right there. Yeah, fire hydrant will poke through this project, which is really huge because that whole side of Cedar Island down at the end there is no water, and that actually provides fire protection for that immediate area, but also it provides for a future extension of a water main down Cedar Island to the west, which is, you know, for as short of a distance as that is, it's still quite a community benefit because that is the closest point where water will exist to, you know, a lot of the homes in the vicinity, you know, just west of here. So I think those are a couple key things to point out, and that's all I really have. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, or possibly Jason may be able to as well.
Yeah, I'd just like to add on that this water main right here, I think it was at the suggestion of Aaron Potter so long ago, I don't remember, but this water main is a 12-inch water main. It's an upsized water main that the applicant has agreed to upsize to benefit the township for the residents down Cedar Island Road. The other thing that we talked about, and I wasn't part of this, my business partner, Cliff Sieber, was part of this, and I believe Sean was out there maybe, but when we met with this neighbor out here, there was kind of an understanding, or this homeowner here thought that maybe her property line was a little bit further away from the side of her house than it is in reality. So we kind of agreed to keep our detention basin about 10 feet away from her property line. We weren't giving her the property or granting her an easement or anything of that nature, but the reason why this basin isn't hugging the property line is because of that meeting. So we'd like to maintain that if we could for this homeowner in this lot as well. Sean mentioned that you know, part of the reason why this took a little bit of a while was because of the Lake Point site across the street. The only site plan changes that occurred on this project with regards to stormwater because of Lake Point is basically some of our storm sewer pipes got bigger. That's it. But that was something that had to get engineered, and I had to wait till Lake Point kind of got through some of its process before I could upsize the storm sewer pipes on this particular project. I think that's for the most part it. This site does provide a pump station. It does extend the sanitary sewer across the frontage, which is actually required by ordinance. It does outlet out to Union Lake Road and heads to the northwest. Lake Point, the future Lake Point project will connect to that sanitary sewer as well. But the big thing on this one is the water main, the 12-inch water main. So nothing else has changed since preliminary site plan approval. It's still 69 units. The units are the same size. All these units have ADA graded sidewalks and parking spaces on them. These are single-story ranch townhomes, all of which was kind of approved at preliminary site plan. I can go into more details if anyone has any questions. Also, the applicant, Michael Finari, I don't know if he's unmuted, but he is here to answer any questions as well.
I also want to mention that this project does provide for an 8-foot sidewalk down the corridor, and it's a good stretch of sidewalk, as you can see there too. And I think, you know, with all the development going on in that corridor, that'll be a nice thing. Start filling in some gaps.
Okay. Well, before commissioners, before we have any questions, why don't we let Michael go ahead and review his efforts and the work that he's done. Okay.
Sure. Appreciate it, Steve. Got a letter, a DLZ letter dated March 9th, 2021. It's a lengthy letter, but it's not bad in any way. It's lengthy because there's a lot going on the site, and it's a final site plan review plus a final engineering review. And with everything that they're doing on the site, with the stormwater pass through, all the water main, we've got pressure reducing valve pits, sanitary sewer pump station. There was a lot of comments, but they've largely addressed them. At this point, I feel really good about the final site plan that we're talking about today, and the remaining items certainly think can be addressed at the time of one more submittal for final engineering. So I just kind of highlight my recommendation is basically a recommendation for approval with a few possible subject twos. One of them being review of the fire department for the emergency access. I just noted that it was kind of tight coming down the fire lane. That actually might go away in the future. I don't know, Sean, if that was mentioned. I didn't hear you mention it, but there was talk about possibly being able to do that to the north if that portion is ever developed in a certain way. But and there is a note there talking about it. But that was one of the items. And as long as Fire Chief Holland is good with the access to the south, then I certainly don't object. I just wanted to make sure he was good with it. The second item that I had commented on that I think should be a subject to is there's an easement along the south property line of the development. It's a Michigan Bell easement, and the applicant, I've asked for a legal opinion to just give us a statement that they do have the ability to construct some of the improvements that they're proposing within that easement. It's not much, but they've got some storm sewer, that fire access road, possibly a touch of the detention basin. But certainly I want to make sure that they're not violating any conditions of that easement as part of the development. So that is one of the things that I've asked them to provide. And I know that they're working on getting that. And then the third thing that I just wanted some concurrence from the Planning Commission on is in regards to the detention basin. The engineering design standards indicate that a 1-on-4 side slope could be considered. I don't know that it's my final authority to recommend that, but I wanted to bring it to your attention. Certainly, we've approved stormwater detention basins with that same side slope in the past, so I don't see it as an issue. It's a dry pond that's not intended to hold water except for the time when it is collecting water during a storm event, and then it'll be released over 24 to 48 hour periods. So just wanted to bring that to your attention in case there's any action that or discussion that the Planning Commission believes they need to take on that. Other than that, they've addressed all of my comments that are relative to final site plan, anything that would affect the site dimensionally. Again, there's some comments that we're working through on utilities and a few things like that. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you've got on the review letter in those regards, but I don't believe that those are going to impact the final site plan approval that we're discussing tonight. So if anybody has any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Chairman Anderson, I can add a couple bullet points from Sean and Mike if it's
Okay.
appropriate at this time.
Okay, go ahead.
A couple things on Mike's list with regards to the fire department and the access. We did do an auto turn fire truck analysis with the White Lake Township 40-foot fire truck. Happy to add that to the final site plan. It shows that the turning movements can work with the White Lake Township 40-foot fire truck. I'm happy to add that to the plan, and obviously that's subject to review from your fire department. But we have done that analysis. It has been done. I can certainly add that to the final site plan. With regards to the Michigan Bell easement, I did review the Michigan Bell easement. The easement basically gives Michigan Bell the right to construct, operate, and maintain their facilities. It doesn't prohibit the applicant from constructing or doing any work within the easement itself. But the clarification Mike asked for is a legal opinion, and I'm not an attorney, so I would never try to make a legal opinion on anything like that. So that we have reached out to our attorney. We're expecting a legal opinion sometime soon, and I will be able to provide that hopefully in the near future. With regards to the detention basin side slopes, what Mike basically covered everything. It is designed as a detention basin. The only thing I'd like to also add on is that this site is entirely sand. We have soil borings going down 30 feet, and it's all sand from front to back. And this basin will actually infiltrate as well. So while it will dewater based on White Lake and Oakland County standards within 48 hours, it's probably going to go way down even faster than that because the basin itself is all sand. Sean mentioned some items about architecture and materials for the pool building. I think, unfortunately, the planning consultant, McKenna, accidentally copied and pasted.
Yeah, I was going to actually mention that. The pool building's across the street, and I think there was a little bit of confusion. So I'm glad you mentioned it because I was going to. There is no pool here.
There is no pool on this site. That's across the street. So in the future, you will see us address that comment on Lake Point, but it's not really applicable here.
But Jason, I think it's important to mention, I believe both developments will have access to the pool, correct?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And in fact, just for everyone's benefit, these units are actually the same exact architecture as well. The unit counts for each building are different. I think Lake Point has 3 and 4 unit buildings. These are some bigger buildings, but the units themselves are all identical in nature. And then there was a comment about like lighting and photometrics. It's a requirement of ordinance at section 5.18G, and we will meet that requirement. We still need to provide that information, but we're happy to do so. I think that covers anything. I'll stay on here to hear what everybody else has to say, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant? Okay, I saw Ms. Carlisle's hand first, so
Yeah.
please.
I can't see myself, so sometimes my hand disappears. Just a question on those easements, is that's for overhead lines, or are they going to cut down? Are those trees going to be cut down as part of the development, even though we said we're going to save them?
So as far as I know, there's nothing actually in that easement. There is no overhead lines or facilities. It's just an easement that's been there for 50 years, and it's just sitting there.
Okay.
So, it's obviously up to Michigan Bell. They have the rights under the terms of that easement to go in there and do what they want with their easement.
But most of these units will be serviced from some utility
Oh,
along the road.
that is correct. It's up to the public utilities to determine where their stuff goes, but yes, there will be a connection up at Union Lake Road, and we'll have to figure out working with consumers and DTE on, where all their facilities will go, but yes, up and down the road.
And the detention basin, I see how it is wedged in there, so I'm assuming that it is all necessary. You mentioned sand, so I thought, well, I just ask, does it have to be this steep, since we have all sand and it's going to really percolate down quickly? Does it need to be this big with the soil conditions?
So in theory, and this is a big engineering theory, and it gets complicated, but I could actually probably design this basin to infiltrate as well, and then I could maybe reduce the stormwater volume requirement based on an infiltration. That's getting really technical and something Mike would have to review. But that gets complicated, and it becomes a long-term maintenance problem if we're accounting for infiltration in our basin designs. It's part of the reason why on Lake Point, which is a different project, but that was originally designed as a retention basin that totally infiltrated. And I preferred, as the design engineer, to not rely on long-term maintenance and infiltration of retention basins. I don't know if anyone's familiar with Independence Village, but that's a retention basin, and I've heard that's had some long-term maintenance issues. You guys probably know about that. So I try to avoid infiltration if I can. Every engineer does. Your engineering standards within the township allow infiltration, but only if it's a last case scenario. So basically, infiltration might go away through sedimentation, and we don't want to account for that.
So you're going to be mowing those slopes? That's going to be turf grass, or?
It'll have the bottom. There's like a little rock swale or riprap swale to kind of like help prevent erosion kind of through the primary channel area. The rest of it will be, have all the grasses required in the basin. And I'm not sure if it's maintained or not. I'd have to look at the landscape plan for that and see what the requirements are in there.
Was your question based on the idea of an aesthetic being so large in relationship to the project or what?
Yeah, it's an aesthetic question, just,
That's what I thought, is aesthetic, okay, yeah. Well, it seems like it's set back in the back, which is sounded good from that standpoint, so
yeah.
aesthetically, you naturally want to make it look good, but since it's in the back, it might hopefully not be more of a moot point, so hopefully that's how it worked, so.
And that fire lane will be constructed now.
Right, yeah, right there. All right. Mr. Maher.
Yeah, back to the, it's a crazy question, the detention basin, you said it's, 30 feet of sand probably, and 24 hours, 48 hours before it dissipates. That being said, in a good sized storm, what's the depth of that water? Anybody have a clue?
I think it's a 5-foot deep basin off the top of my head.
So the issue here is there's no fence, and probably because it's so sloped, I guess. But, it sure looks like a swimming pool for an 8-year-old to me.
Oakland County, and I'm assuming White Lake, we typically make our basins a max depth of 5 feet. I'm going to zoom in right here. Our high water elevation is 950. So at the upstream end, it'll be 5 feet deep. At the downstream end, it'll be 6 feet deep. That's only under the 100-year storm event,
Okay.
which is very, very rare. There's a 1%
so pick
chance
a
of it
storm.
happening in any year.
Pick a storm between 0 and the 100-year debacle. What a typical.
I mean,
storm.
I can't answer that question. I haven't run that analysis because we're
Maybe
only
the water
required
wouldn't
to
even
run the
show?
100-year analysis.
Maybe it would seep in so fast that it wouldn't even show.
I mean, I don't know. I'd have to run analyses to
Alright.
really answer that question. But yeah, it's all sand out here and it infiltrates like crazy. But I didn't want to get into infiltration calculations. But I could have actually designed an infiltration basin on this site and probably had it meet standards. But we chose to go with an outlet design because that's preferred by everybody in the engineering field and including your White Lake Township standards. So.
And Pete, if the steepness of the bank exceeds, I think, a 1-on-3 slope, then it has to be fenced. I believe that's the number. So it's subtle enough to where it's not required to be fenced. I mean, we've got actually quite a few. I mean, if you drive past the library, they do outdoor programming. They have basins that are adjacent to their building on either side, and they meet the standards, and they're not fenced.
The logic is a normal human being could just walk out of it.
Sure. Yeah.
Yep.
Stand up and walk out.
Just for consideration, like from a maintenance standpoint, we typically use like a 1-on-3 side slope as the limits of maintainable where you could mow that. This is less steep than that. This is a 1-on-4 side slope.
Yeah.
Just to give you an idea.
Okay. My other thing, Steve, was I'm trying to understand, we don't have mandated landscaping requirements for projects, do we, Sean? We don't mandate.
We do. We do have landscaping requirements, yes. And they meet, and I don't know if you, let me see if I can go to my.
So the question is, will the existing vegetation satisfy that mandate?
I think that the review considers it to be reasonable, and
Okay.
you would need to find that it is in your motion. That would be appropriate. You can see here that Jason's pulled up, quite a bit. You can see bubbled out the existing landscaping that will remain, and you can see quite a bit of trees, quite a number of trees and shrubs interspersed throughout, along the streets and between buildings. So they don't have an objection to it in the review. However, you should make the finding that you will accept it, and give them credit for preserving existing vegetation. Just to be clear, we don't have a woodland ordinance. There was no tree survey that was required or provided. So it's sort of a gray area. But
Okay.
that's kind of where we're at with that.
Okay. I'm done.
Okay. I'm sorry. Okay, Matt, please, Mr. Slager. You got to unmute. There you go.
I got a couple questions. The basin, I understand it's sandy out there, but if you look a little bit to your north, you already have a puddle up there that's probably silted up, so that's not infiltrating, and that'll do that in time. I don't know that I have an issue with the side slopes, but are these owned or rentals?
They will be rental product.
Okay. I don't know, looking down on the Cedar Island Road sewer, I'm not sure if, who's going to own that and operate it after it's put in place?
Once it's within the road commission right of way, it's their responsibility to maintain their sewers, their storm sewers. So from the minute it gets within the road commission right of way, it's their responsibility. The basin itself and the pipes coming out of the basin will be the HOA's responsibility to operate and maintain those. But should the HOA not maintain it, then there's easements over all of that gives White Lake Township the right to come in and maintain the basin themselves.
Yeah. And I'm not sure how far that pipe goes, but when you look at the ditch line in Cedar Island, rather than, can you guys, I'm not sure what it'll do to your pipe sizing, but can you connect some of that stuff in so they can get rid of that and clean it up a little bit when you're going down the road?
Yeah, so on Cedar Trail, I'm going to zoom in on this. By the way, this did get reviewed. It's not formally approved by the road commission yet, but we did submit this for the road commission, and they had us make some changes. But this is the outlet pipe. So it goes from the basin all the way down west to Hidden Cove, and the outlets out to the wetland next to Hidden Cove. And part of the review from the road commission was there's 2 existing catch basins here at Cedar Oaks Trail. And if anyone has ever been out there, these things basically don't operate. They're full of sand and sediment. They're broken. So part of our job here was to clean out and pick up these 2 catch basins and put them within our storm sewer so that the storm water coming down Cedar Oaks Trail no longer travels down Cedar Island Road. Another thing that the road commission had us do is they had us change, you can see the structure D that's right here kind of at the bend on Cedar Oaks Drive. That is now a catch basin. It was originally a manhole. So that will enable us to grade in ditches in this area. Right now, all this site just kind of drains onto Cedar Island Road and heads west. Same thing with these 2 houses in between Hidden Cove and Cedar Oaks Trail. The road commission had us revise these to catch basins. They were originally manholes. So we can kind of grade in some ditches in this area. And then ultimately outlets out to the wetland next to Hidden Cove, for which we do have an Eagle permit to construct that outlet.
So you're already doing that. Okay. And then,
Yep.
Sean, I'm not sure, when we look at these 2 developments together, being the one across on Union Lake Road and the one in this development, we don't really have a path for crossing the street. I mean, we anticipate a lot of pedestrians going across. There's no crossing on Union Lake Road. Is that a concern?
That is a good question. I mean, it's not the safest road to cross in the township. And, it would be a mid-block crossing to even try to put some sort of pedestrian crossing. So I don't know if Jason's had any conversation with the road commission on maybe some signage. But, I think that it's as unfortunate as it is, it's a situation where they may be taking their car across the street,
Right.
Unless, because really you'd have to get all the way down to the north end of this site before you could even cross to a sidewalk, because there's no sidewalk at Carpathian. So you'd have to get, I guess, to the north half of the sidewalk, north of the driveway out to Union Lake Road. So I don't know. That's a good question. Jason, have you talked to them about any signage? I mean, what's your thought on that?
I have not talked to the road commission about that. I'd have to defer to the applicant if his intent is to have everybody drive over there. I know we added a bunch of parking spaces over there for that exact reason, so people from over here could drive over. The approaches are spaced out a little bit far apart. The problem with putting in some kind of crosswalk is exactly what Sean mentioned. It's called what the road commission calls a mid-block crossing, and to put it in a nutshell, they hate it. They don't want to do it. I've only done 2 in my 20-year career of doing this. The road commission doesn't want it. And
they're not the safest. They're not the safest configuration.
Yeah.
People aren't looking for pedestrians crossing outside of like an intersection, and it is dangerous.
Yep. So that would be a struggle to try to get that permitted. And I don't even know if it could get permitted by the road commission.
Yeah, and I don't know that we do. I'm just leaving all the lines like you mentioned. Are there enough parking spaces for this clubhouse across the street if everyone's driving over there? So
well, and my hope would be that those parking spaces would be for the West Valley folks, because the Lake Point folks can walk 100 feet and be right down there. So it may work out okay.
Right. And hey, Sean, the last question I have is, and it's kind of related to this development, but if you look, so we have a cul-de-sac going to the north there, and they're saying there might be a future connection for, emergency vehicles. And I just happened to be looking earlier today, because this plan didn't come through with the review today. So this is the first time I've seen this. But, you have the other development that's just going on to the north, and you got this Hidden Cove development that's been there for a little while. And we got these streets that just kind of end, and they don't have a cul-de-sac on them. I don't know what the intent is of this other site that's going on north of this or northwest of this one. Is it going to go in? Is it going to connect to Hidden Cove, or I'm just, how do we kind of get so we don't have these dead ends everywhere when they're supposed to be, they're planned to continue, but yet they're not continuing.
That's a good question. And, back when Preserve at Hidden Lake, which is that project that you're talking about to the north, was approved a year or so ago, Matt, Hidden Cove, is a private road, and there's not a requirement for them to allow a connection. What we did get through was a gated emergency access, which is not perfect. It's better than what they have now. I agree. I mean, road systems that connect and go somewhere are better for a lot of reasons. But as far as that project to the north and to the west are concerned, Hidden Cove folks didn't want to connect, and the developer offered. We urged them to connect. They didn't want to, and there would be quite a bit of cut through, if you could imagine, that they did not want to have on their private roads. And so I understand that, but it came up recently, just a couple of weeks ago, as a matter of fact. There was a new Hidden Cove resident who had asked about it, and so I asked them to talk to their HOA to see if they had changed their position. And I asked the developer if they would make the connection. And actually, the developer at that point said, well, look, we've sold a bunch of lots telling people it's an emergency connection only. Now we'd have a hard time going back and trying to kind of, make that switch, because they would then suffer cut through traffic after they had already built their house. And I get their point too, but the Hidden Cove folks said, no, the new person does want to connect, but we as a group still do not want to connect. So that will not be a connection. But yeah, these dead end roads, the long dead end roads are a problem. It causes there to be more traffic on the main roads instead of people being able to make their way through side streets just to kind of go down the block a bit. When this project out kind of to the north of this West Valley project does develop, our hope is, and our intention is to get that connection so that folks on that site and folks on in this site can cut through there. There's a chance that the use that would go right to the north here would have kind of a symbiotic relationship with this apartment complex. So they may really want to make that connection. So we're going to leave the opportunity open. We're going to make sure there are easements in place and that it's a part of the discussion for the new development that will come into the north at some point.
Good.
Okay.
Okay.
That's all I had.
Okay. Thanks, Mr. Swicker. Commissioners, any other questions? Yes, Ms. Europe.
As rental units, what do you anticipate monthly rent to be here?
I can't answer that question. Hopefully Michael is listening and can unmute himself and answer that question.
Yeah, we'd really like to hear from him.
Good evening, board. How you guys doing today?
Good.
So we anticipate rents in around $2,000.
Okay, and I kind of assume that Lake Point is going to be rental properties as well?
It's very similar product. We just completed a project in Independent Township. It's kind of gonna mimic that one at the corner of Dixie Highway and 75. And
yeah, I've been through there. It looks nice.
We people are long-term leaseholders with us there. Our first vacancy is not till August, so then 100% running since we finished the project.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Mr. Ruggles?
Oh yeah, I'd like to make a quick comment. I know it's been quite a long journey on this project. I think the first time I saw it's been, seems like years ago. But I'd like to thank the developer. I know he worked really hard with the neighbor there in the southwest corner, the lady, to make sure she was happy with the setbacks and the driveway and all that. And I look forward to seeing the project get underway. So
I appreciate that. I do want to say one thing. Yeah, we want to save as many trees as possible. So the more that we save, buffering the adjacent neighbors is our main goal too. So I know you guys were talking about that earlier, but we just think that brings more aesthetic, the natural feel of some fully grown trees. So our intention is to keep all those boundaries as what it is possible. Also,
perfect.
If none of the commissioners need to look at this, whoever was sharing the screen, we can shut that down. There we go. There we go. So let's see here. What am I doing here? Okay. So is there any other comments by the commissioners?
I just, back to the detention basin.
Okay.
With the 1 and 4 slope. That's quite a bit of land. And then if you look at the whole project, there isn't any other outdoor land that the tenants can utilize. So is that a possibility that could be utilized for letting the dogs play and any kind of recreational use?
So I will say that there is a center park area. I know I took the plan away, but there is a park area in the middle, and the size of that park area does meet ordinance requirements with regards to recreation. With regards to what that basin can be used for, I mean, that's a stormwater basin. I know it's not what everyone wants to hear about, and I think White Lake is actually trying to figure out a way to rework those to make it more usable. But the way it's drawn up right now it's a detention basin. But it will be pretty dry down there. That's what I anticipate with the sand and the way it is. But I mean, it'll be up to the residents to determine if they want to send their dogs down there to utilize it or whatnot. But with regards to recreation, there is ordinance requirements, and we did meet those ordinance requirements within the center park area.
Yeah, I mean, your point's well taken, Mr. Hart, but I don't think, knowing the situation, that we'd want to encourage people to go ahead and be down at the detention pond. I mean, there's going to be, Jason, there's going to be a homeowner association with this group, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So.
Well, they're not homeowners. There will be an association that manages the property.
Manages the property, but not anybody that has any rights as far as for making any changes or anything, such as doing that. Okay.
No, Mr. Fernari will be the single sole owner of the entire property and all the buildings, and be responsible for the basin maintenance, so on and so forth.
Okay.
So we don't know, is that going to be grass that's mowed or natural grasses that grow up? What type of vegetation will be in there?
Sorry, I'm not ready to answer this question. That's the landscape architect, but let me see if I can find that answer really quick.
It will have to be maintained though, Debbie. We can't just let it overgrow. We've had that scenario in some other areas, and we've had to actually go back after the property owners and have SADs to clean those out because they become non-usable or non-functional after a while if they get too overgrown. So.
And there is a basin maintenance schedule. All that's in the plans. That is part of what I put together in the stormwater is, how often you need to clean it out, and if there's sediment in there, so on and so forth. What I don't know is what type of grass is planted in there. So I'm trying to find that out, but that we are required to maintain it. Oakland County and White Lake has a bunch of rules and standards on that. And we have all that in there. It's all in there. The detention basin seed mix is a sedge meadow mix. I don't know exactly what that means. I'm not a landscape architect.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, sedge meadow mix is what is going to be seeded all over the entire detention basin. And I'm not going to pull my plan back up, but there is trees and shrubs kind of around the high water mark of the detention basin to make it look, you know, nice and pretty and aesthetic. It's not just going to be a hole in the ground that's going to have mowed grass. There is shrubs and bushes and trees. I'm counting 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 trees kind of around it at least. So.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comments or questions by the commissioners?
I'd say one last one is the 1 on 4 side slope. Is that a design standard, or is that something that he's asking to exceed a different standard?
So
The
I'll let
reason-
Mike answer.
Yeah, the reason I brought it up tonight, the standard is 1 on 6 unfenced, but it also says that 1 on 4 for a dry pond would be considered. I just don't want to assume that that's purely my jurisdiction, so I wanted to bring it up for conversation tonight in case anybody had concerns about that. But I know that the township has approved 1 on 4 side slopes for dry ponds unfenced in the past.
And I will add on, if it was a wet basin, we could put a fence around it and it would meet White Lake Township ordinance, but no one wants a fence around this thing. And also Oakland County, which is different standards than what you guys have here. 1 on 4 is the standard in Oakland County, like it's okay. And then the last thing I'd like to point out is that the grading standards for just general grassy areas in White Lake Township is 1 on 3. It's steeper. So 1 on 4 might sound steep to you guys, but I could grade a berm right next to this at 1 on 3 and still meet the standards, and it'd be steeper than what this basin is. So 1 on 4 is a pretty standard thing in Southeast Michigan for grading slopes everywhere, really. And you guys actually have less stringent standards with your 1 on 3 grading slopes in your engineering standards.
Okay. Anything else?
If that makes any sense.
Yes, Ms. Carla.
Trying to get my hand to show, but ordinance, Michael, would be 1 on 6, and you're saying 1 on 6, you don't get your capacity. I am a landscape architect, so I understand what you're saying. I don't like a 1 on 4, just why it's mowable, and maybe 1 on 3 is too, but it's really not a very nice mowable slope, and you don't get a good turf, and you don't get your topsoil to stick very well. So they're all over the freeways, and there's a lot of gullies and such. So 1 on 6, I just want to confirm you can't get your capacity for that.
If we had to go to 1 on 6, I can't answer that off the top of my head. I'd have to design and engineer it to figure that out. I do know that if we went to 1 on 6 slopes, we would have to sacrifice the kind of grassy area that we kind of promised to the neighbor to the west. That basin would slide over, that wall would slide over, and that whole area would be gone. And then we would be talking about potentially constructing retaining walls within our basin in order to make it work. And retaining walls and water don't mix very well. You can do it. I've designed them before, but it's definitely not a situation that I would want to get into. But that's where we would go with 1 on 6 grading inside that basin.
Thank you.
Okay, well, if we don't have any other questions, then to moving this along is that I need to have a recommendation, a motion for a recommendation for this to go to the township board.
This is actually final site plan approval, so this is your action.
Wait, is it? Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, okay.
Keeping you on your toes, Mr. Anderson.
Well, no, it's that I couldn't pull up my schedule here. Okay.
The next one you do make the recommendation though.
Okay, so that's fine. This is going to be, yes, as far as final site approval, I'm sorry. Yes, go ahead. Can I have a recommendation, a motion for approval?
I will move to approve. And would you like me to make that motion?
That would be awesome.
You guys are so easy. I move that the White Lake Planning Commission approve the final site plan for the West Valley development, subject to all planning department and consultant review comments, and with a special notation how's this for creativity, Sean? That the planned, that the amount of vegetation that the developer plans to leave will satisfy the township's landscaping requirements.
Very eloquent.
Do we need to make the additional notation about the approval for the from the fire department?
You mean
Remember, Jason was talking about that they did a
adding that
survey
sheet?
as far as on the turning ratio and everything else, but he still hadn't had us fire department approve it. So
Fire Chief Holland has seen that turning radius plan, so as long as his review indicates he's good with it.
okay, that's fine.
We're okay.
Okay, good.
Wasn't there something about lighting?
That's in the review letter.
Review.
Should be good, yeah.
Okay. So we have a motion. Do we have support?
I'll support.
Okay, we have a motion and support. Ms. Grubb, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Mary Carlock,
Yes.
Steve Anderson,
Yes.
Debbie DeHart,
Yes.
Peter Maher,
Yes.
Matt Slicker,
Yes.
Scott Ruggles,
Yes.
Rhonda Grubb, yes.
Okay, so motion is approved for a final site plan for, let me go back to my, for parcel number 12-36-176-003. Okay?
Thank you all very much for your time. I really appreciate it. Great questions. We're really excited for this project. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You can stay around, or you guys can leave if you'd like. It's left up to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We won't
I have
take
board
it
meetings to get
personally.
to.
Yeah, we won't take it
I
personally if
guess.
you decide to drop off.
We're missing out.
Off to Milford Township. Thank you, though.
Okay, so the next thing on the agenda is for the applicant for Fairview Construction Company, right? Is that what we're looking at? And
No,
other
that
business. That was
Never
Fairview.
mind.
I'm sorry. Is the other business is a PD waiver for a vacant parcel number 12-21 -426-04, providing that we go out of order, if that's okay for you.
Hey,
Yeah, I don't see him in the room,
Okay.
so I don't know if he's going to show up, so I may have to speak to that, so we can
Well, if
wait and see if he shows
Sean,
up.
if you want to, we'll go ahead and do the reports, and to give them some time, and then that
Sure.
way it minimize the amount that you'd have to do. If that's okay.
I'm happy to do whatever way you prefer. is good with
Okay.
me.
Well, why don't we go ahead and do the liaison reports, and then give them the applicant some other time on the other business. Okay.
Sounds
Sid.
good.
So we got any reports from our esteemed consultants?
Sure. Would you like me to speak a little?
Sure. Let's
It's
go.
getting dark
Mr.
in here.
Ruggles.
Can you guys see me okay?
Yes. Looks like
Um,
you're a little. It looks like you're in black and white, but rather than because of the
kinda
light.
lights
That's
on.
okay.
I lost the sun. So we had a couple of joint meetings for those of you, most of you are on the Ccdc committee, but so we had presentations from River Caddis and Gershenson Kirko, both consecutive evenings. There was a third firm that was supposed to present, but I guess they decided they were too busy to entertain the project. So moving forward, where there's going to be some more correspondence, and they're going to put together some kind of simulation projects of what they have envisioned for us. So that's moving along. The township board met on Tuesday and discussed a variety of things, but I wasn't at that meeting, so I don't want to comment on anything that took place. So that's the short of my update.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ruggles. I appreciate that. Any questions for Mr. Ruggles? Okay, not. So Who wants to go next? Do we want to go with Parks and Rec?
Yep, we met last week, just to kind of discuss the update on the grant application. The application is due April 1st. It looks like everything should be in line to get put in by that point. We discussed purchasing picnic tables for the time being, so that if people are going to start utilizing that space and going down towards the water or walking on the trail, that there'll be a place they can stop and have a lunch.
Oh, Ron, I've got a question.
Yes,
I saw those picnic tables. How do they get so expensive?
they're pretty much, just call it $3 a piece for a picnic table.
I know it. Does it seem crazy?
Yeah.
I can comment a little bit about that particular model. We were just trying to copy or use the same ones that were at
Bloomer.
So that one has a pretty unique wood that you can't carve in, and it lasts forever. So I pay it's a tropical wood, so there's a lot of issues with tropical wood. So I think we're looking at some more regular picnic tables for this purchase.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, we had asked the board if we could purchase 6 tables. It was going to push $20,000 for 6 picnic tables, 2 of them being ADA compliant. And they met on Tuesday. No. I'm sorry. I don't, but they just asked that we perhaps find a less expensive picnic table to put down there. So that's the plan now. There was a public hearing on the resolution for the grant application on Tuesday of this week. I have not heard any feedback from that. I'm going to guess it went well. And that's about all I have to report on that.
Okay, good. Do we have a report from the, I should say, any other questions for Rhonda? Okay, do we have a ZBA report?
We do. Again, we had quite a few cases. I will tell you this, we are probably going to see back to the Planning Commission the apartment building on Pontiac Lake Road, because there were so many variances requested that the ZBA felt that these needed to be addressed. There were too many variances. So they're going to come back probably with a smaller building. It appears that they might come back with possibly 2 less units in the building to make it smaller, so that the side yard setbacks aren't so huge. I'm trying to read my notes. If they cut off 20 feet from the south side, it would go from 14 to 12 units. Would reduce the parking spaces. The dumpster location could be changed. And could there be some parking on the lot across the street for recreation? It could be a dual use parking, recreation, basketball, guest parking. So it was actually denied to allow the owner to make alterations to reduce variances. And it will have to come back to the Planning Commission.
Okay. Mr. O'Neill, do we have any, did you provide information, Ms. DeHart, on timing for them to get that information to Mr. O'Neill?
We have not heard back from them yet, so I assume they're working on some revisions.
Okay. So do we have do you want to communicate to them a time frame that they should provide that information, or you just want to leave it open?
We'll kind of let them, our plan is to let them have the time to go back and regroup. They may have a minor redesign, they may have a more significant redesign. So we're really waiting to hear from them. And I anticipated a call, but have not gotten one yet. So we are in touch with them regularly. We just haven't heard from them since this action.
Okay.
So.
Okay. You moved on my screen, Michael. I'm going. Where did he go? I'm sorry. So do we have any other thing that you want to ask as far as planning consultant report, Michael? No.
No. No, I mean, I could give you plenty of updates. We got sanitary sewer project about to start on Bogey Lake North. That's Pinecrest up to Barrel Drive. Debbie's
Okay.
familiar with that area. And then trying to finish up plans for 2 DWRF projects. One, we're bringing water down to the Huron Valley School campus on Bogey Lake Road. And the other one, pretty exciting, we're doing water treatment plant design on the Aspen Meadows existing well house site for iron removal. So excited to get those projects finished up from a design standpoint, and then try to get them bid out. So
Okay.
a lot of stuff going on. Exciting.
Okay, good. Mr. O'Neill, did you want to provide a director's report? And then if our applicant doesn't do it, you can go ahead and move right into discussing it when.
Nope, no problem. So the ZBA and Parks and Rec Committee have been real busy, as you heard. The board's been working on quite a few things related to parks as well, and did hold a public hearing, or had a public input session on Tuesday, and then took action. And everyone's very enthusiastic about the land and water grant, and so we're just crossing our fingers that we assume that there won't be any pitfalls between now and April 1st, knock on wood, and we're hoping that everything goes well with that application. So Scott mentioned the Ccdc. We're making good progress for those of you who are involved with that. For those of you who are not, eventually this summer you'll probably become more involved as that starts to evolve. A couple projects are making really good progress. They're building out quite a few houses in preserved hidden lakes, which Matt mentioned earlier today. That was a project just north of the one that you guys considered tonight. I got an email, and I think they've got 23 sold jobs. They have sold 6 houses in March, which is pretty good. It sounds
Right.
good to me. I mean, we're only, that was yesterday, so we're only 17 days into March, and they had already had 6 sold, and they're running out of lots. So their phase 2 will probably be opening up in the next couple of months. The issue they have is, if you remember that project, you'll remember that it's sort of a mixed residential. At the very north, there were townhouses near St. Pat's. And as you move south, you're moving into duplex condos on the north side of the lake, and then the south side of the lake and the south side of the property was all single family. And they started on the single family side. They don't feel that there's any market to support the townhomes, and I'm not surprised to hear that. They thought they might be able to work it out. So hopefully by April 15th at that meeting, you will see a revised final site plan from them, which includes converting all of the townhouses back to duplexes, which will reduce their density, but will allow them to, I think, build it out more rapidly and successfully. So, and actually for the homeowners who are on the west side of this property, they'll probably enjoy that, because these will be 1- and 2-story units and be, a bit shorter than some of those townhomes might have been on the northwest side of this property. So it's a big change for them in their product, but I think it's a pretty easy change for us to deal with. Anytime a project that's already been approved comes back wanting to build fewer units, it's usually not an issue. So there won't be traffic studies needed. There won't be, a whole lot. I mean, there's some engineering that Mike's going to have to take a look at, and but it should be pretty straightforward. The second phase of the Trailside Meadow project off of Elizabeth Lake Road, closer to Williams Lake Road, they are probably going to break ground on their second phase. Mike, I think their plans are approved, aren't they?
Yeah, the last submittal, we were good with the engineer,
Yeah.
the final engineering plans on them. So
Yeah, I think they're probably going to be getting into their second phase around the time that Preserved Hidden Lake gets into theirs as well. So those two are really moving along, which is great. That Center Point Plaza project that's next to AutoZone, they're coming along nicely, and hopefully going to be landing a tenant or two here very soon, and that building will hopefully be open for business before too long. Wanted to mention that the Triangle Trail, which we've talked a bit about, and those of you who are involved with Parks and Rec will be more familiar, but that's the trail that will run down Elizabeth Lake Road from M59 to Taggardine, up Taggardine to M59, and then back across down 59 to the west to kind of complete that triangle. A bit of that pathway is in already, but that's been kind of a goal that has been pushed. And we internally, Justin completed, and I don't know that I mentioned this last time we met, but Justin completed last month a Ralph Wilson grant application from the Ralph Wilson Fund to cover, I think, a good portion, maybe half or better of the design costs. So I think we will hear in the coming couple of months on that one. So that'll be, it was just kind of a quick, easy grant. It was easy for me because I didn't do it. I asked Justin to do it, and he did a good job with it. So, we're hoping that we'll have some funds and some good news back and some funds then to move ahead on that design. What's really kind of neat is that once you get the design grant, if you do, it doesn't prohibit you or preclude you from moving ahead and asking for a construction grant from another part of that fund. And that could help chip away at what would be, I think, nearly, Mike, a $700,000 project in total, roughly.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a while since we looked at that,
Yeah.
but the numbers sound about right. That'd be including including the portion up on M59, right?
Right. And that's probably the last step we'll get. That's sort of a challenging section because of all the existing businesses that have kind of raised curbs along their side. There's really not a whole lot of space.
The entire portion is challenging. The grading challenges along Taggardine are going to be significant.
They are, yeah, and it'll force us to go with maybe as narrow as a 5-foot sidewalk because of the grades there and the open ditch. So, but it would be the west side because I think there's more right of way over there, but that's the more challenging side as well. There are a handful of projects that are kind of in various states of discussion that aren't necessarily formal yet because applications haven't been made, but I think there's a good chance that this summer you guys are going to get a little bit busier with a handful of projects that I think are kind of hanging out there. We had a rezoning come in this afternoon for the parcel that's tucked behind AutoZone and behind the Center Point Plaza, which I just mentioned. I want to say it's a 7 or 8 acre parcel. The business has been run out of there for a number of years, and they want to rezone it local business, which would match what's up front. And possibly when the property that's just west of Center Point Plaza, that home that's been for sale for a number of years, rezones, it'll maybe square off that block on the north side of M59. So you'll probably see that on April 15th. That's really all I have. I mean, I could talk for another half hour.
Right.
But,
Mr. O'Neill, is there any thought for the idea, the old Sonic place is, that's vacant and anything else? Is anything happening with?
So I had understood that there was a flooding issue in that building. There was a pipe that had burst and that building was flooded. I don't know how badly damaged the inside of the building was, but we've had inquiries about that and several other parcels and buildings around the town. And, I don't know what the future holds for that. It could very well hold a complete redevelopment where the whole thing's demolished and something is built new in its place, which is kind of crazy because it's not that old. But if the Sonic's not there, I don't know, most fast food restaurants don't serve at your car like that. So it's sort of obsolete, functionally obsolete, for most other users. So that's a good question and something that we'll probably hear more about in the next couple of months.
Okay. All right. Well, now we wanted to move over to the plan development waiver for the vacant parcel. Which is
Can I ask Sean one quick question?
Oh, sure.
Sean, has there been any discussion at all on the board level or at all about the stimulus money coming through and what that might be used for?
I don't know. That might be, I don't know if
Scott's still there.
Yeah. Oh, I think we lost him.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
all the lights went out and we,
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how much we're going to get.
I do.
You do?
3,100,000.
All right. Well,
for
I don't know.
For White, are you sure about that, Matt? For White Lake, because it wasn't.
It wasn't
posted. it wasn't posted originally because they listed a whole bunch of Oakland County townships and everything else, but they hadn't put White Lake in. But if you're seeing something that's there, I'd like to be able to know where you found it. So.
Yeah, I don't have any more information on that, but yeah, that's a good question. And Steve, I haven't seen it either. Matt, if you send it to me,
I'll forward this to you.
Send it out to everybody. But yeah, thank you.
Yeah, because I made it a point when it came out, especially when it was 867 million for Detroit and a couple other places. I go like, I'm going through the system and saying, well, where's White Lake? Where's White Lake? Where's White Lake? And
Way down the list. Yeah.
But anyway, so it's good to hear, Matt, that's the case. So. Okay, any other questions for Sean? Okay, and as we go back and move to this plan development waiver for this vacant parcel 12-21-426-004. Brian is the applicant on or anything? Do you hear anything from the applicant?
We only have one caller in the meeting at the moment, and if that's the applicant, then press *9 to raise your hand and we can call on you.
I don't believe that that's the applicant, but I'm happy to just go through
Okay.
my memo quickly, and then the applicant's memo, which you all saw in the packet. Basically this is a waiver request by Mr. David Yaldo, who is a part of a group that is looking to develop the southwest corner of M59 and Elizabeth Lake Road. I think that parcel is he says approximately 9 acres. We just looked it up and it's 8.61 acres to be exact. And, as I mentioned in my memo, it's challenging because there are roads on two sides of it. There's a stream on the west side. There's a wetland on the south side. It's, really boxed in. When we put the minimum acreage requirement in the ordinance, it was to encourage the, assembly of parcels. So we didn't have a bunch of PD projects that didn't kind of integrate and connect and function in a meaningful way. And, the only other request you've had for a waiver, and the waiver is a fairly new provision that was added to the ordinance. And I think it's a good provision because it gives you the ability to make a recommendation and the township board will, the ability to grant it in certain circumstances. Obviously a waiver just allows them to proceed forward in the process. It doesn't give them any vested approval to develop their site. But when it's a site that's either oddly shaped, uniquely positioned in the township, or has a use that's desirable, it allows you to make a finding that it should be allowed to move ahead at a sub 10 acre size. And, again, it's very close to being 10 acres. The first project that you saw was maybe a 5 acre site. Calvary Lutheran had the assisted living facility that came in a while back. And that was the first one that was considered. And you made a recommendation to approve that, and the board approved the request officially. And then the project sort of fell by the wayside with everything going on. So, the staff, we recommend that it be recommended for a waiver. Per section 3.11.x. And let me scroll down here and I'll put up the site plan. I should mention that we met with this development group over a year ago, and they had a bigger user. Go to share my screen here. They had a bigger user at the south side of the site and a couple of smaller users that were kind of where these four boxes are shown now. They did not have the loop road. That was one thing that we said, because of access management, we have to have, a loop road, not just to serve this corner, but as you can see, let me mouse over here. You can see this driveway located at the southwest corner. That is the only access that gets back to that, I think 40 or 50 acres. That's really kind of landlocked. That Glenn Properties owns. It's the same outfit that we bought the Township Civic Center property off of, the 26 acres, as well as the library's 8 acre site was also purchased from that group. They own this corner and they own kind of the back 40, let's call it. So this access needed to be here for them to be able to get into their site. And it really didn't make sense that that would happen through a parking lot. It wouldn't be very desirable or beneficial. So this kind of ring road or this loop road provides good access for not just this corner use, but for the folks in the south, southwest of this. So that's kind of one big change from the original plan. Their access to M59 has changed. They have told us that, and I don't want to bog down too much into the site specifics, but told us that there'll be a full in and out driveway at the far west side, but that driveway that you can see right here will not allow left turns out. And that's a good thing. I think that'll be a pretty dangerous movement at such close proximity to the intersection here. So, other than that, they have to go through the full site plan approval process. The staff again felt this plan was much better than the original plan. And, we're just looking forward to, we may even have, before the week is over, we may get their plan in the door before the end of the week. I was actually expecting it earlier in the week and just did not get it yet. So this is just kind of what they're starting with. There'll be some tweaks that are necessary as we move through the review and approval process. And, obviously it's a complex site when you look at it from a traffic standpoint internally as well. They've got 2 drive-throughs proposed, which would be covered by the PB approval rather than needing special land use approval. And then, quite a bit of activity here at the hub or the heart of let me move this over. As you can see, this will be a pretty busy focal center point of their parking lot. So got some things they've got to work out, moving some dumpsters around, things like that. But, we'll see what they can do. They've kind of proposed sprucing up the corner here and having like a little sitting area and kind of a welcome to White Lake kind of sign. I mean, it's not a border, but they're going to do something decorative that acknowledges that they're in White Lake Township at the corner, provide some screening for, this drive-through aisle at this kind of prominent side of a building, because we don't want to see cars stacked up like along Elizabeth Lake Road. So we'll dig into all the nuts and bolts of it through the process, but that's just sort of a quick snapshot at a high level from on this project. The one thing I will mention is this area that they show for future development. It's just not desirable for retail at this point. It can't be seen from M59. I don't know what they'll do there. They had talked about possibly some residential component, but that's not really on the radar right now. If they're serious about it, then they should probably nail down an approval through the process for that kind of land use, because PB is, primarily business and institutional. We do allow assisted living type and rehab type facilities that are have a medical component to be located in PB. So that'll be something we have to kind of take a look at. So if you have any questions, I'll try my best to answer them. The applicant didn't join us tonight. Perhaps he didn't think he needed to, but it's a pretty straightforward request.
Do any commissioners have any questions? I mean, the good thing is that if we have this format as far as that waiver, it gives us an ability to influence, I won't say control, influence the development as opposed to some of the other things that we can do. So, Mr. Maher, did you have something?
Yeah, I just want to express a little bit of frustration. Being as a CPA in public accounting, this is my typical client, there's people going in here, but the master plan indicates kind of this whole thing, the Kroger store was going to be the civic center, and this area was going to be planned community. And I think that planned community probably went further south, which now is the civic center and the library. And it's just like my frustration is why don't we just throw that master plan out the window? I mean, it's a wish list. I get that, but it doesn't seem to ever have any. Nothing ever seems to come to fruition with it.
When we put that master plan together, and I understand your frustration, it's 10 years old now, and we had some pretty grand visions, and that's a good thing. I mean, we're trying to push, kind of push our feelings about how our township should grow and develop on, push them forward. And the one thing, if you recall, that we did is we did 4 focal areas in that master plan, and this was a town center area. And, I think the master plan is always very conceptual and it's a guide, and I don't want to say you never expect, but you can hope that it's going to develop that way, but rarely does it fall into lockstep. But I understand. And I think we talked about when Kroger redeveloped across the street, it kind of was the death knell for that whole concept in that whole area, because we talked about buildings being forward on the road and having, kind of a mixed use. And instead there's this giant, and I'm not trying to be derogatory toward Kroger, because it's a popular store. It's very busy. It looks very nice, and it's something that the community needs, but it really kind of derailed some of that at a pretty focal point in this whole focus area. So the master plan, you guys looked at it several years ago and found it to be in good order and to be relevant. But it's funny to bring that up, because I believe in 2022, I'll bring forward a proposal to the township, or to you guys and to the township board, to update that master plan. We'll have new census data. A lot of development will have occurred in that 10, 11 year period of time. And, it'll be time to kind of spruce it up a little bit. There are some things.
Maybe we can catch some residential on the back of this property.
It's possible. It's possible. We're looking at a lot of residential, or some significant residential in the Civic Center area with a mixed use project. And, I think it's fair to say that. So the township's property, will be used only in part by township, I should say government buildings. And I think most of it will be kind of a mixed use. So I think there's a pretty good opportunity for there to be quite a few residents in this area, just south of the library. So we're still meeting some of those kind of goals, just maybe not in the exact form or way that we had anticipated back in 2010 and 2011. But I do appreciate your comments, because it can be frustrating, but I think we need to get back at that next calendar year. So I plan this fall to budget for it and ask the township board to, support the planning commission, working with staff and with probably some consultants and with them, the township board as well, to kind of update that master plan.
Yes,
Sean,
Ms. Joer.
since this is in such close proximity to the downtown civic center area, shouldn't the planning commission possibly be shown maybe some of the conceptual ideas that we're just beginning to talk about? Because, and I understand what Pete's saying is this doesn't blend what I'm looking at right now. And I know that this isn't what they've submitted, they haven't put anything right. I understand tonight we're just looking at the a waiver, but it doesn't, to have a drive-through restaurant where we're trying to promote walkability and people, a community downtown sense, it to me doesn't blend very well.
And I think, so I guess you bring up a good point and a question too. I mean, do you want to send that message with action tonight? Do you want to deal with it, or do you want to deal with it when they come in with the preliminary site plan? I think for you to let the record reflect that you've got some concerns about, our desired walkability in this area and how, it may not mix with some of the proposed traffic patterns, internally. I think that's a fair thing to say, and something that, could be looked at. Now, I had some real concerns about a drive-through stacking like that in such a prominent way, but they've assured me that through their plan, they will be able to screen from Elizabeth Lake Road that stacking lane so it doesn't look bad, because drive-through lanes don't look nice. And it is it's the most focused upon area in the entire township right now. So it's really up to you guys. I'm trying to help him because he's not here, but it would certainly be his job to sell this, not mine. But you certainly aren't giving anything away at this point, other than just the ability for him to come back and seek, rezoning and site plan approval, and when it's a PB, we want this, and here's our community benefit. And if the community benefit is lacking and the plan doesn't, I guess, jive exactly well with what the vision is for this area, then I think you can push back and you can require some changes. I do think some features I will point out that they did add are these outdoor seating areas, these kind of plazas that I think are shown as about 40 feet, but I think they intend to be 35 feet. So they are kind of trying to provide some interior people space, which I think is unique. There's nothing else that has anything quite like that in the township. And that I think is more in line. And I think, to their benefit, I would point that out. But, drive-throughs aren't, harmonious when you're talking about their interaction with pedestrians. So,
Well, one of the things, you talked about the drive-throughs and, drive-throughs for a drive-through restaurant, fast food restaurant, or whatever else. And then here's the area for congregation or for, the seating area or whatever else. So I guess, did they give you any indication, Mr. O'Neill, about what was going to be in these buildings?
They did not. End users?
Yes.
No, not yet.
Okay. But did they give you an idea that this is going to be the retail, or is it going to be, service minded, or didn't say?
They haven't been real specific. Obviously the drive-throughs will be some food vendor or drink vendor of some kind.
Right.
And the courtyards would lend themselves to that type of use as well, but they didn't really get terribly specific as to, who their end users might be. So, I mean, I don't, if they were here, they might be able to answer some of that. They will probably be able to answer some of that when, if they are able to get a waiver and they come back for the, preliminary site plan.
Well,
through that process.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not speaking for all the commissioners. I'm just asking, how would you feel? Because I don't know your exposure of what you had communicated to them, that we go ahead and say, hey, table this until we actually have an opportunity to talk to them, as opposed to putting a recommendation to the board. I mean, what's your gut feeling, commissioners, about that? Go ahead, Ms. Carlisle.
I'm all right with tabling it till I can see their point of view. I mean, I'm not real thrilled about that. I'm not in love with it, that's for sure.
Yeah.
It's just
I mean,
kind of blah.
I'm just trying to figure, I don't know what you had communicated to them, Mr. O'Neill, that they, that they felt that they didn't need to be here for that, or they,
I don't know if there was confusion within their group. We've met with them a couple of different times, and the point person, David Yaldo, who sent the letter in, is pretty on top of things and pretty responsive. If I would have had more time, I would have probably tried to email him. I don't know that I have his phone number handy, but to ask him, what was going on. I don't know what happened on their end, but yeah, and I don't know, and I don't know if Scott is still here, because I was going to say, what you might want to do if you did want to move it forward is make a recommendation and fill it with, some comments on, questions that you may have that you think the board should get answered from them before moving ahead with it, and comments that you have regarding some of your concerns with kind of some of these users and walkability, and maybe let the board try to ask some of the questions that you weren't able to answer tonight. And, if they're okay with it, then you'll see them at preliminary. And if not, then it just stops here. So I would say that my thought to move this along would be to fill your recommendation with some comments or questions or suggestions for the board, and ask them, because the applicant was not here tonight, to get these answers and make sure that they're satisfied with them before moving it ahead.
Yeah, Steve, I'm picking up what Sean is saying. What they're looking for is a waiver from the 10-acre minimum requirement for a PD, right?
That's right.
That has nothing to do necessarily with what would end up on this property. Now, they've floated this sample site plan just for grins, but it seems to me we could approve it and say, yeah, we'll give you a waiver for the plan development, but we'd like you to be a little more creative with what you're going to put on this property.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't have a problem. I just wanted to be able to throw suggestions out on, yes, Ms. Carlisle.
Oh, I'm just waiting for my turn. I can't see my image, so I can't see if my hand is appearing, but I'm pretty disappointed. I feel like you should show him the Sonic site down the street and he could put some of this in there easily. This site has been since I was a little girl, and I forgot to get off the school bus in kindergarten, and we got stopped here while we're trying to figure out where I lived. This is a very primary property in the township, and now Elizabeth Lake Road is going to be our main street. So I just find this to be horrible. I don't really want to vote for it. I understand the loop road and what you're saying. To me, it's just, I expected something more special and in keeping with what we're trying to do with a civic center. I don't like that it doesn't face Elizabeth Lake Road, and it's just a bunch of puny little drive-through restaurants as far as I can see. So I don't know that I'm going to vote for anything for it. That's all I got to say.
Ms. John?
Well, Mary's on the Civic Center Development Committee also, and so because we got so excited with what has been taking place, I mean, it's so exciting. When we were talking about the new developments tonight, I was sitting there thinking, boy, is there any way we could connect? I mean, it would be such a short little bike ride down Elizabeth Lake Road, right into the, from Hidden Lakes, the preserve at Hidden Lakes, right into the new Civic Center. Look at how many people are going to be we're going to have great restaurants. It was so exciting to think about that. And then to see this is so disappointing. And this does not blend at all. But what side of the road is the triangle loop trail supposed to be on Elizabeth Lake Road, the west or east?
The east side.
The east side. Well, Sean, you know what we've seen. It doesn't go with it. That's why I'm wondering, shouldn't the planning commission see what we've seen?
I think, and at a certain point, I think yes. And I think this may hasten that a little bit, a request for this corner. And to your point, I'm a little bit torn on this one because we ask them to show us a concept plan, but we tell them, look, it doesn't mean that it's going to be approved like this. We have the right and the ability to make some changes, lots of changes, or tell you no. And so the property itself warrants a waiver because it's not 10 acres, but the PD or PB in this case, the agenda unfortunately says PD, but it's PB, it's plain business. It warrants a waiver for this 8.6 acre parcel. So there is flexibility to do some of the things that we're talking about, but it doesn't mean that this arrangement is going to be acceptable. The area that they show for future development provides an opportunity, kind of what Mary had said and Debbie alluded to as well, for them to do some things on Elizabeth Lake Road and, maybe push the buildings further up and put some of this parking kind of behind and kind of do an L where you've got frontage buildings along Highland and Elizabeth and Highland Road. And, that might be something that you can, push them to do. They could still get the same kind of square footage. They might be able to build similar buildings, but the orientation of them and maybe some of the architecture, which obviously we haven't seen yet, could make these kinds of uses could fall in line, because I do think that the uses themselves aren't wrong necessarily for this corner. It's maybe just the presentation, the arrangement, the layout, how the site will flow and function. And, I think you're going to have a bit of a, kind of a wide berth in order, to make some of these changes, and for good reason. So I don't know if that helps or complicates the decision tonight, but It sounds like they're going to have quite a bit of work to do on this plan, and they're only just beginning. They're only just asking to be let off the
waiver.
the
Yeah,
10-acre leash at this
right.
point.
I think the key thing is that knowing, like with the rest of the commissioners, we sort of look as a vision of what we have as planned, and then we're forgetting or being short-sighted about the idea of what the request is. So again, if the PB that we have this, we need to be sure that we can influence what is going to be developed here. So if we go ahead and do the recommendation of the board for the PB, but your suggestion, I have comments of what we think this should look like, more in line with the Civic Center development application, as opposed to having 4 actually buildings that are just slab blocks that we're looking at here. So
I think that kind of thing is exactly what I'm talking about. And I
Yeah.
think, there are 3 board members that are on the Civic Center Development Committee as well. So that will resonate with them. They'll probably have the same kinds of questions and concerns. And, the rest of the board has still been involved in that process. So it's going to be important to all 7 of them. And so that's why I think that sending it along sends a message to the board that you have concerns and you want to make sure that they're on board with it. And it sends a message to the applicant that, there may be some tweaks needed based on what's going on down the street and what's been discussed. And that's something they should anticipate having to, answer and make accommodations for.
Hey, Sean, so this is zoned AG, right?
It
And
is.
what's the master plan?
I think it's a planned community
And community.
in this area.
Okay.
And so, it sets up for kind of a mixed use type application in general. But the area around it is kind of looked at as planned community or town center. So it's all kind of looked at as a potential mixed use down the road. So
Are the drive-through restaurants permitted in the master plan use?
the PB zoning, which achieves PB and PD would be in town center, would be the 3 zoning districts that a project should move ahead being designated as in this area. And, it is allowed in planned business, drive-throughs are permitted.
And with giving this approval to go for a PB, can we limit a drive-through restaurant there?
I think if you had good reason to, and you cited possibly concerns that it wasn't compliant with the master plan or wasn't in line with what the vision was for this area, I think you could limit them or possibly eliminate them. I don't know. If it's a permitted use, they certainly have the ability to push ahead and ask for it. And I'm not saying that it's appropriate, but I'm not saying it's really out of line either. It really kind of depends. But that's a good question. I don't know. I think you probably could. You could probably limit them. You're not required to give someone PB approval. You're not required to rezone their property. If you don't like their site plan, then you wouldn't give them rezoning approval because the 2 move ahead, kind of as a couple. So they are coupled together initially. And if at any point it fails in the process, it reverts back to its previous zoning district for the ordinance or a more appropriate zoning district. So that's all kind of
So PB doesn't give them any permitted uses, right? That's what I'm kind of wondering.
Well, it does give them access to a host of permitted uses in the ordinance, but it doesn't mean that they will demonstrate that that is appropriate for this corner or that it'll work on this site. And, if this was a general business zone parcel, then they have the ability and the right to develop it per the ordinance.
Right.
Planned business doesn't give them really any right to just automatically develop to a certain standard. It allows for some negotiation. They're going to be asking and needing some things like, you can see right here, they're really into the wetland buffer, probably needing to tweak that a little bit. That's one example of a huge, exception to the ordinance that they'd need in order to get their site plan approved. So when you start adding all of those up, then the community says, all right, well, what community benefits are you providing to White Lake at large, not the township, the residents, the business community, whatever, are you providing at large to offset the impacts of those exceptions to the rule, those exceptions to the ordinance that you were given? You know, that could be included. You could put drive-throughs in there. I mean, there's an impact to having drive-throughs from a traffic standpoint. They're ugly. You know, all those things kind of add up.
Yeah, and the reason I'm asking is, like, if you looked at the permitted uses under AG, which is zoned right now, and whatever the master plan is, right, they'd have to get it rezoned to something different, or does that automatically go to the master plan? And that's why I'm curious, because are we opening up ourselves to other permitted uses that are currently not in the AG by giving this waiver?
I think you're in. I think the township's in a better position with a property that's zoned PB or PD than they would with GB or another residential district if it were compared to a PD, because it allows flexibility for both parties. They have to meet certain standards to get our approval. When I say our, I mean the township's approval. And it's usually a give and take. So I think, you know, on any project that gets PB or PD approval requires a rezoning, and it requires a site plan to be approved at the time that the rezoning is approved. So there's kind of a whole lot that's rolled into it. And then, you know, if this were zoned general business, it's like, this is a setback here, this is a parking requirement here, and we totally, you know, they have legal protection. They have a right to develop property that they own. And, you know, I think we could limit them from the standpoint of special land uses, which is what a drive-through would be considered a special land use in the general business district. So you could tell them no on that, and you could cite a whole bunch of reasons, because I think there's maybe 9 standards they have to meet, and I don't know that they can meet them all. I haven't reviewed it yet from that standpoint. So I think general business gives them some rights, but it also allows you to withhold special land use if they don't meet the standards. Planned business allows you to kind of cut to the chase and work together for, you know, on a give and take type basis, to where they get some things, the township gets some things, everybody's happy at the end. So it's really just maybe a philosophical thing. I mean, if you do tell them no, they could rezone this to general business, which would be, you know, their next best step. Then there would be no development agreement, no contract effectively between the township and the developer. But that's an option. I mean, they still have the ability to come back and make that application if they don't get, you know, a PB waiver.
I think, I mean, I know we can beat this up for a long period of time, but I wanted to be sure to move forward on this. I think the things that we could possibly look at is list the concerns that we have, you know, besides the idea of the not going ahead and supporting the master plan, that it doesn't have the vision of the civic center. You know, it does. Those are the things that I think are going to be important. And then so we can be able to have control of this and just say, hey, the only thing that we as a commission feel comfortable with is the approval of the lessening of the amount of acreage, as opposed to what we are seeing here tonight.
I would say, I would be careful not to say, maybe if I could suggest, that they don't meet the master plan. They haven't really been directed by you yet to meet a certain standard. And I would hate for them to have this plan in its existing current form, you know, be the reason, you know, to approve or deny, frankly. But I would just say your concern is that this corner should meet the intent of the master plan and should be in concert with what the Civic Center development intends and proposes for this corridor, things like that. So you're directing instead of saying, well, we don't find it to be. It's early in the process to say they don't meet it, but it's not too early to say you need to meet it. So you're being clear to them. You're sending them a message. And you know, I'd maybe direct or phrase it that way if I could make that recommendation.
Okay. Yeah. Any other comments, guys? Okay. So do we have a recommendation for this to the board?
I'll do it. A motion?
A motion for recommendation to the board.
Yes, I move that the White Lake Township Planning Commission recommend to the Township Board approval of a PB, Plan Business Waiver from the 10 acre minimum requirement to a less than 10 acre requirement for this parcel 12-21-426-004. Now, here's the thing, I don't know how to make this as a notation. And I don't know how to do this, Sean, but I'd like to send a message to these folks that as future corporate citizens of White Lake Township, and we'd like them to come up with a development that is complementary to, I don't know if you have to throw in the master plan, but is complementary to our new Civic Center development. Somehow that is complementary to that Civic Center development, which is not what they've currently proposed.
I would also recommend that you cite the master plan because that's an approved document. And I think that helps tie it all back. I'd recommend you throw, both in there.
Okay, but that's not part of my motion, I don't think.
No, you can put that in your motion is what
You
we're
could
saying.
put it in your motion. Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah. As long as Sherry can type as fast as you're talking, yeah.
Sherry there, Sherry, is it in there? She's mute.
Sherry's got like, unmute yourself, Sherry, and say, yes, you can do that. She's typing.
There she is.
Can
I've
you
got
do-
it. How would you like me to word it about the master plan, though?
That the future plan development is complementary to the new Civic Center and in keeping with the master plan. John?
I think that's fine. And I think you may want to even add some of the specifics that were mentioned regarding, being pedestrian friendly and paying attention to the Elizabeth Lake corridor with, buildings being oriented that way. And, you may want to
Also-
throw those specifics in.
Sherry,
Incorporate
could you
the
cut and paste that?
Yeah.
I have it.
Sherry's got, I got it. Do we want Sean to put something in there about development of the other part of the land there? Or
If you want to send any kind of message as to what you would expect that to be in the future, you could certainly, make a statement. I mean, what's hard is that they're asking for a waiver, but they're showing you only maybe 3/4 of what the use will be. So I think, if you had a feeling on that, you could mention it. Because they should share that, with the board and kind of, add that to their
ask them
record.
if they would be able to show some possibilities reflecting the same nature, the same ideas with the undeveloped property. Yes, Ms. Carlisle.
Oh, I just thought I noted that Sean mentioned that they're getting into the wetland buffer. I'd like to mention that I want them out of the wetland buffer. I understand that that's a pretty high quality wetland with a fen back there. So that's kind of a rare wetlands. I don't know if that's, I
Put
just
that
went by what you said. Sean.
Yeah, I don't think that's unreasonable for them to know now that that's going to be an issue for you guys because, they should hear it now.
So you want to add that too, Pete?
Sherry, can you cut and paste?
Yes, I'll have that in there.
Okay. So we've got a motion for a recommendation to the board based on this PB waiver. Do we have support?
I'll support.
Okay. So we now have a motion for recommendation to the board and support. We need a roll call vote.
Rhonda, you have to unmute.
Debbie DeHart,
Yes.
Steve Anderson,
Yes.
Mary Carlock,
Yes, with all those conditions.
Peter Maher,
Yes.
Matt Slicker,
Yes.
Rhonda Grubb, yes.
Okay, so motion passed with all those wonderful notations, and we would definitely see these people again. Probably many times.
Please don't bring that site plan back.
Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
So next up is communications. Do you think we've got April 1st and April 15th? Sean, what's the possibility of us having those meetings?
I think that April 1st is unlikely. I'll be joining you from the car if it is. Yeah. We'll pass each other maybe, Pete. And I think April 15th is likely. I think the Lake Point project that we talked about tonight may end up in front of you on the 15th, and the rezoning application that we got today has the potential to make it to you for public hearing on the 15th as well.
Okay, that's good. Okay, guys, we're 15 minutes over my time frame that I said I wanted to do. So
Motion to adjourn?
do I have support?
Support.
Support.
Go blue.
Roll
Green.
call, please.
Debbie DeHart,
Yes.
Steve Anderson,
Yes.
Mary Carlock,
Yes.
Peter Maher,
Yes.
Matt Slicker,
Yes.
Rhonda Grubb, yes.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for your time.
All
Good
right, have a
night.
good one.
Good night.
Okay.
Thank
Good
you,
night,
everyone.
And don't forget,
Live
hook 'em horns.
in Florida.
Go blue.
Thank
Y'all
you,
keep
Brian.
well.